again in the chapter relating to women, was that Arabian society, men in Arabian society would marry 10 times, 20 times, multiple times, and they would divorce those women at one time, abandoning all the women. So the legislation of the Quran came stating, in the context of the Arabs in that society, marry 2 or marry 3 or marry 4. And what does the verse state? If you are unable to do justice amongst 4, then marry only 1. Everyone knows this. This is the context of the revelation. If you go and check the verse of the Quran, you will find this. That the Quran states, marry the women 2, 3 or 4. If you are unable to do justice amongst multiple wives, then marry only 1. They are ordered to marry only 1. And then, in this context of Arabian society, where men would marry multiple times and treat the women unequally, the Prophet of Islam, alayhi salatu wasalam, said that any man who marries twice and does not do justice between those 2 wives on the day of judgment will be resurrected half paralyzed. As Muslims, we are aware of these things. But again, in a non-Muslim society in 21st century Britain, when these things are quoted, modern man or postmodern man is unable to fathom these things. The question occurs at this point, why did the Prophet of Islam marry a young girl who was and consummate the marriage with the young girl at the age of 9? In this day and age, this is termed as pedophilia, and people have been known to insult the Prophet of Islam alayhi salatu wasalam on national television. Of course, Muslims find this very offensive. One person did say, we have a right to insult. I would say to that anyone who is a non-Muslim has the right to criticize. They have the right to criticize, and they are able to objectively criticize any religion. But as Muslim theologians or Muslim clerics, we would say that we are able to respond to any criticism. This is the difference. So a person does not have the right to mock or insult, but they have a right to critique. For instance, if we made a mockery of the Holocaust, or we made a mockery of those who die in war, in World War I and World War II, this would be insulting. And even in an Islamic state, this would be prohibited. The government would prohibit this. But writing an objective academic paper on any subject would be permissible. As Muslims, we would be able to respond. The answer to that objection regarding the Prophet ﷺ marrying a young girl would be that in Arabian society at that time, a girl who had reached the age of 9 was not considered a girl. She was considered a woman. And anthropologists will tell you, whenever studying any culture or time, you do not apply modern standards upon a culture which existed hundreds of years ago. You do not apply modern standards. In that region and throughout many regions of the world, people considered girls as women once they passed the age of puberty, because they were mentally mature and they had passed the age of puberty, as well as the fact that it is not agreed upon that the age of Aisha radiallahu anha at the time of consummation was 9. This is not something agreed upon by Muslim scholars. Some of them state she was 16, some state 18, because people in those times did not record dates of birth. And the fact that shows that she was very mature was that she was able to relate multiple historical events, and she was the most learned female scholar amongst the companions, that she was able to relate so many historical events. The Prophet of Islam alayhi salatu wasalam married a few women, and those women were all women who were widows or women who had been divorced. The only young woman he married who was unmarried prior was Aisha radiallahu anha, who was the daughter of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. So this incident that Zionist Jews tend to mention this many times, and Christian Bible bashers from the American neocons, they tend to mention this to the extent that one senator mentioned this in the American White House, in Congress. He mentioned this. But they take this incident purely out of context. Some